Story 1. Some background. I work in the military as a medic and live in the barracks. All the personnel living in my barracks work at the hospital as medics too. The way our barracks room is set up, there are 2 rooms that house 1 person each and a small, shared common space with 1 bathroom. Since the pandemic, the commanding officer of the base had people living in the barracks to double up to make room to quarantine those who are from the ships. So now each room had 2 people, a total of 4 people sharing a tiny common space. I didn't have to move rooms, but someone moved into mine, so I had to make space. We'll call her Sally. The room was already small, so cramming another person was less than ideal, but there's nothing we can do. I was also a minimalist, so I was able to give Sally more than half my living space and allowed her to hang up any artwork or photos to make it more comfortable for her. I also had an extra mattress foam topper that I gave her because the beds are awful. At first I thought she was okay. I laid out my rules clearly because I've had troubling roommates before. My rules were simple. 1, don't have people over or throw barracks parties in my room because, social distancing, and I still have valuables and I don't know her friends. 2, be clean. 3, if I do something you don't like, tell me right away. No passive-aggressive crap, and I'll do the same. She seemed to be okay with the rules, but boy was I wrong. The hospital we worked at had each department manning down 50%, so we didn't work every day, and Sally and I had different schedules. The nights before I worked, she would go to some other person's room to party. Not allowed, but none of my business. But she would come home around midnight plastered drunk, making a lot of noise, and go into our fridge. That was in our tiny room that she stuffed with alcohol way above the allowed amount, and grab more alcohol while lighting up the whole room and clinking the bottles. She'd leave, and then come back again around 3 and making even more noise, and before she goes to bed she would play the TV full volume and light up the whole room, or have her Alexa blast heavy bass music that shook the room. This would happen nearly every night. I already have insomnia and have mental problems, and not sleeping wasn't helping. I confronted her about it, and she said okay, but she didn't change. I've talked to my chain of command, and they couldn't do anything because rooms are limited, but they offered to talk to her chain. We worked different departments. The other 2 roommates in the other room even told her to keep the noise down at night, and one even called her out for being stupid and selfish. Sally didn't care. I ended up buying a $300 noise-canceling headset to drown out her bass and other ruckus. Things got worse when I was put on night shift. I'd sleep throughout the day, and my shifts were 12-14 hours, so I was exhausted when I got home. Thankfully, she stayed out most of the day, so I was able to sleep. But when I would come home, I would clean up after her before I would sleep. Trash was everywhere. I'd vacuum. I even bought her a small drawer so she has more storage. One day after work, I came home and I couldn't find my new headset. In the middle of looking for them, Sally came home for lunch, and I asked her where they were. She found them on her bedpost. I asked why they were there. Oh, they fell from the side table, so they moved them, Sally said. They? This is when she knew she screwed up. Yeah, I had a few people over last night. Me, trying to be calm. Why did you have people over last night? I told you that I wasn't comfortable with that because I don't know your friends. These are expensive headphones. I know. I apologize, they were just trying to move them out of the way. Another thing, I left my headset on my bed. Why would they be in the way? Sally was silent for a few minutes as she knew she screwed up again. Don't have people on my bed. And I don't care if you party somewhere else. Just don't do it here. After she left, I let my chain know what happened and that I'm not comfortable sleeping in my own bed. Chain is trying to help, but moving me is still low priority. Since we're in the middle of a pandemic and all. Fast forward a few days. I came home from work and I noticed my bed was messed up. I smelled my covers and noticed someone else's smell. I immediately washed my sheets and told my chain again. I worked again that same night and was now going to lose some shut eye because I have to wash my stuff. I confronted her again and she half apologized. I knew that no matter what I say, she is still going to do what she wants. Since I've been working nights, she's been blasting her bass all throughout the night, and not only can the other 2 roommates hear her, and have asked her to turn it down. The 4 people living directly below us can hear her and have asked her to turn it down. She would say okay to everyone, but continued to do what she wanted. Finally, someone filed a noise complaint about her to her chain. Sally came home crying, saying, "I can't sleep with headphones because I move a lot in my sleep and they will come off. And I need the bass because it helps me sleep, and my favorite one to the other 2 roommates. I leave the deadbolt open on my door so you can come in the room and tell Alexa to turn off when I sleep. I don't like having the door open, but I do it as a favor for you." She claimed to have been assaulted during a room inspection and doesn't like having the door bolted open, but she is the only one that bolts the front door open too, that leads to the hallway, so anyone can come in every night. But hey, you can choose to believe her or not. After that day, things were tense, but she turned the music down, but she still was a stupid drunk every other night and had people over. She tried to make me look like the bad roommate, and she was a victim somehow, but I volunteer a lot and have a lot of friends throughout the hospital, including her upper chain, so no one believed her. Finally, she did something that would get me away from her forever. I came home one night and saw trash as usual and started putting things away and cleaning up. There was a trash bag that wasn't there before I left. While putting her things away in her drawer, I saw a crap load of needles and gloves, about 13-15 syringe needles. I immediately messaged a friend who worked in her department and asked if they were allowed to bring home needles. He said no, and that he was working duty last night at the hospital, and Sally came in drunk at 8 p.m., literally 30 minutes after I left for work. The people working duty didn't know she was drunk at first, and Sally asked if they could let her in her work area for something. One person didn't see why not and let her in without supervising her. This is when they suspect she snuck the needles. When they checked on her, they realized she was drunk and kicked her out. My friend advised me to make a video as evidence that it's hers because he was now liable to report the incident. As I was talking to my friend, I was still cleaning, and as I was tossing trash in the trash bag, I saw so many bloody gauzes and uncapped needles in the plastic bag. Sharps have to be tossed in a sharps container, and where I'm at, locals go through the trash and properly sort them, and if a local was to get stuck by one of those needles, the base would get in so much trouble, so I recorded that too. A roommate from the other room came home, and I asked her if people were over the night before, and she said yes, and I showed her the bag and drawer of needles and asked if she knew anything about it, and she was just as shocked as I was. The revenge. Finally, I sent everything to my chain and was interviewed by Sally Chain and told them everything and was moved out that day. The military police were called to my room to investigate. Unfortunately, Sally came home before them because someone warned her. She had the audacity to move the needles in the common area to try to blame another roommate, but my video evidence, the testimonies from myself and the other roommate, and her history shuts her down. When I moved out, I took everything, from the drawers I bought her, the hooks on the wall, my blackout curtains, my cleaning supplies, my extension cords, to the pins on the cork board. Additionally, the commanding officer put her on restriction for 30 days, and she had no electronics and had extra duty, and deducted 2 months of half pay, which runs up to be $2,000. The best revenge is how she's now socially outcast from all this. During the investigation, she threw so many people under the bus to try to save herself. She might have gotten more punishments, but that was all I heard. She already has a reputation of getting irresponsibly drunk, getting into fights, lying, and skipping out of work. I've talked to her chain, and they've described her as selfish and a pathological liar and don't pity her. This event just showed everyone her true colors. Another ending, because of my event, the hospital commanding officer had to investigate what the base commanding officer did and saw that the quarantine rooms were never used to their max occupancy, and the ships at this point had their own quarantine system. Everyone in the barracks was able to move back to their original rooms, and no one was doubled up anymore. Also, I was never told what she used the needles for. She tested negative for drugs, and there was no evidence of drug use in the room. Story 2. My cousin, who I'll call Jake, is 30 years old, and I'm 31. For as long as I can remember, Jake has always believed he was the favorite grandchild. He used to brag about how our grandparents would always do things specifically with him, like taking him out for dinner or helping him with projects. But the real reason they only spent time with him wasn't favoritism, it was convenience. He lives just 5 minutes away from them, while the rest of us live in different states. I'm the furthest, about a 13-hour drive away. None of us know where his sense of entitlement came from. Even Jake's parents have called him out for his attitude, but it never changes. Now, for some background, my grandmother passed away 10 years ago, and my grandfather is now 92. Despite his age, he's still in surprisingly good health. Recently, my dad, aunts, and uncles started having discussions with him about practical matters, future funeral costs, making sure his will was up to date, insurance policies, and other things like that, especially with our upcoming summer family reunion in mind. When we all gathered for the reunion this past August, things were going well at first. Everyone was catching up, the food was great, and the atmosphere felt cheerful. But, as usual, Jake couldn't help but make things about himself. At one point, he made a loud comment about how he was totally getting the house and Grandpa's refurbished cars. For context, my grandpa restores old cars with my uncle, who happens to be Jake's dad. Most of us ignored his comment, like we always do when he starts boasting. That seemed to annoy him because he decided to double down and prove it to everyone. He turned to our grandpa right then and there and asked him about the will in front of everyone. Grandpa, being as straightforward as ever, gathered all 9 of us grandkids together. He explained that his main assets, his house, and the cars would be sold when the time came, and the proceeds would be divided equally among all the grandchildren. That announcement did not sit well with Jake. He completely lost his temper because, despite being told countless times that Grandpa loves all his grandkids equally, he still believed he was the favorite and therefore deserved a larger share of the inheritance. What made things even worse was when he realized that our step-cousin, Erin, who is 25 and has been part of the family since she was 12, was also included in the inheritance. Jake made a nasty remark about how she wasn't even a real grandkid. That was the last straw. The whole family immediately called him out on his behavior. It turned into a huge argument, with people from every corner of the family telling him how inappropriate he was being. There was a lot of shouting, and Jake eventually stormed off in anger. Fast forward to now. The reason I'm writing about this is that I just got off the phone with another cousin about an hour ago. Apparently, Jake was arrested last night for trying to steal one of Grandpa's cars. But here's the unbelievable part: since he never actually helped with restoring any of them, he didn't even know which ones worked and which didn't. He tried to steal one that wasn't even functional yet. From what I've been told, he's currently sitting in jail, and his parents are refusing to bail him out. Grandpa, on the other hand, already has a meeting scheduled with his attorney this Thursday to officially remove Jake from the will. Sorry if this story sounds a little scattered, but that's basically the full picture of the chaos happening in my family right now. Edit. Just to clarify, Grandpa had already discussed his will with all of his children, my dad, aunts, and uncles, and they all agreed that since they were financially comfortable, the proceeds from the house and car sales should go to the grandchildren. Everyone will still receive sentimental items and heirlooms too, of course. Edit 2. None of us can figure out where Jake's inflated ego came from. He's a college graduate with a good job at a local mining company. His parents, who are actually my favorite aunt and uncle to hang out with, are kind, grounded people. Jake doesn't do any kind of illegal substances, and he's not the partying type either. He's the kind of guy who'll nurse one beer for an hour and call it a night. Somehow, though, he convinced himself that being the favorite meant he was entitled to everything. Story 3. This is a story from when I was in college. It has 3 main characters. Carl, 50 years old, developmentally delayed man, about 350 pounds, and all solid, Jimmy and Mark, graphic arts students. I saw the whole thing transpire. We lived in a dorm. I was at the end of a hallway. The other guys were at the beginning near the foyer in rooms right next to each other. Carl was doing upgrading. He was big and burly and enjoyed drinking beer. He had anger control issues and was mildly delayed. If he wanted to, he probably could have choked out both guys with one hand each. His sister, who loved him dearly, got him a cassette boombox for his birthday and a Shania Twain cassette. Carl loved Shania's music. He loved it so much that he would listen to one song at full volume. Shouldn't be a problem, except he didn't like to close his door. He also liked to rewind the tape while it was still engaged in play mode and let Shania sing that same song over and over and over again. So it got a little weird for everybody else within earshot. Music, screech in reverse for a minute, maybe, and Shania was singing that same freaking song again and again. Over and over and over. He'd started about 6 one morning and ran about 3 hours before silence. Oh, bless silence. I am in my room at the end of the hall, and it was so different that I thought maybe he dropped dead or something. So I went to have a look. Nope, he was heading to the shower. Okay, a few minutes peace anyway. I went to Jimmy and Mark's room to see how they were faring, being closest to Carl. Ever see an animal that is caged up and being teased lots? That was Jimmy. Mark was more settled. Jimmy reminded me of a hardcore tweaker. He was a bundle of aggravated energy. He asked what was going on. I said, "Carl's gone to the shower. Quiet for a couple minutes maybe." Jimmy said, "Screw this. I'm gonna smash the boombox." I said I didn't think that would be a good idea. Carl has past issues. Jimmy said, "I can't listen anymore." I went back to my room and closed my door, expecting the worst and not wanting to witness it. A few minutes later I hear, "Idiots. Freaking idiots. I'll have the cops on you like oranges." Carl had returned to his room and found his intact boom box without an electrical cord. He then proceeded to dispose of his bathrobe and to run up and down the hallway, banging on doors and screaming about the idiots and the oranges. The guy went into full-on beast mode, foaming at the mouth, and even his hair was standing up. I have never seen anyone so agitated in my life. I placed a call to security housing. Those jerks hated me anyway, always giving me crappy roommates, so I decided to ensure they had some excitement that day too. Got the meanest little jerk security guy on the phone and said, "There's something wrong with Carl. You might need to come see." Carl had started extending his trips up and down the hallway into the foyer, and then into the ladies' wing, which was a no-go zone for us lads. The security guy almost pooped his pants when he came upon Carl, beet red face, foam and nothing else. He says to Carl, "Hey, what are you doing? Go back to your room." Carl's response was, "Screw you, you sawed-off little jerk. I'll snap your freaking neck." He then proceeded to advance toward the security guard. I was impressed with Carl's vocabulary when he was angry. That security guard executed a perfect about-face and hit the stairs running. Carl was slower, but managed to trap the security guard in his office on the first floor. Next thing I heard sirens. It took 8 cops to get Carl into cuffs and into the car. We never saw him again, and we never had to listen to Shania again. I still laugh about it now. Story 4. This happened a month ago, but the thought of it still scares me. My grandmother passed away before I was born and left my grandfather lonely. He had 3 sons, brother 1, brother 2, and brother 3, who is my dad. My dad was the youngest of them. After some time, his sons helped him move out of the family home and into a small mobile home. 10 years later, brother 2 went through a divorce and moved in with him. Unfortunately, he suddenly passed away from liver complications, leaving my grandfather severely depressed and lonely. My dad came up with an idea: why not get him a pet to keep him company? He later found out that one of his neighbor's cats had kittens. The cat had 4 kittens, and the neighbor kept one while giving the others away once they were old enough. After my dad asked her about it, she agreed, and it was confirmed that he would get one of the kittens. In December of 2019, we brought him his new furry companion. The bond between them was adorable. It was as if the cat understood English whenever my grandfather spoke to him. We named the cat Charlie. During the summer of the global health crisis, we began letting Charlie outside little by little, allowing him to explore the small neighborhood safely. Characters: me, Grandfather Gramps, entitled mother, entitled kid, and police officers 1 and 2. Now to the story. That day, I asked my dad if we could visit Gramps and Charlie. He said yes and dropped me off since he had to go to work. He was working on a Saturday because one of his co-workers was on vacation. My family and I were also planning to get a cat soon. After my dad left, I went inside. Gramps and I let Charlie outside, then sat on the porch talking about what his life was like in the 1940s. Charlie was lying on the grass facing the street when 2 people started walking closer to the driveway. In came the entitled mother and her son, the entitled kid. Entitled kid, "Kitty," he shouted, pointing to Charlie. He looked about 8 years old. Gramps: "Hi, you can pet the cat, but you need to put on a mask," he said gently, "since my grandfather is high risk." Entitled mother: "Well, we don't have any. Can we still pet it?" Me: "Hi, my Gramps is 83 and is high risk. So if you don't have a mask, we need you to leave. A lot of people here are high risk, and you need permission to be on this property." Her: "Be quiet. Don't talk to your elders like that." She looked like she was in her 30s. Then she turned to her son and said, "Angel, you can pet the cat." Gramps: "Ma'am, you need to leave now, or I will call the police." Entitled mother: "Angel, take the cat, it's your reward for having to deal with these rude people." Me: "What? Give Charlie back." Charlie managed to escape from the entitled kid's arms, hissed at him, and ran inside. I walked up to the entitled mother. Me: "You can't just take other people's cats." Entitled kid: "Mommy, I want the kitty." He whined and began crying. The entitled mother suddenly kicked and pushed me to the cement and yelled, "Give me the cat now, or I'll call the police." Gramps: "Oh, you won't need to. I already called them, and I have your picture. No need to run. Also, don't kick my grandson, or I'll defend him." The kid ran to his mother and hid behind her. She stood there with a smug grin until, about 5 minutes later, the police arrived. Police Officer 1: "Now, what's the issue?" Before he could finish, the entitled mother cut him off and smugly said, "These 2 trespassed onto my property and stole our cat." Police Officer 2: "What's your side of the story?" he asked Gramps. Gramps: "Well, I have a video if that helps." The entitled mother's grin immediately faded, her face turning red. Me: "Yeah, she also kicked and hit me," I said, showing him the marks on my arm. The officer looked at the evidence and then at the video. Police Officer 1: "Ma'am, put your hands up. You are being arrested for assaulting a minor, attempted theft, and trespassing." Soon after, the father of the kid arrived to pick him up and gave us a glare as they left. Police Officer 2: "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. Gramps replied firmly, "Yes." Later, my dad came back, and poor Charlie was still too scared to go near the front yard again. Story 5. Just wanted to start off on saying, I'm not sure if this would be considered as revenge, but we will see, I guess. So I live in a duplex in a nice neighborhood, but the people who live upstairs have some sketchy friends. So naturally, I installed a doorbell camera as I like to order online frequently. Well, the other day, I received an early package that I was not expecting to get for another day or so. It was a really busy day in the house too, so I wasn't checking my phone for a couple of hours, and I wasn't waiting on a delivery. Anyway, I checked my phone eventually and saw that I had a few doorbell cam notifications. I checked the footage and it showed the delivery guy dropping off a package, taking photo proof of delivery and walking away. He didn't knock or ring the doorbell. I saw that happen 2 hours before this point. I ran outside and the package wasn't there. I then checked the footage again and it shows that one of the upstairs neighbors' friends, dealer, took the package and drove off with it. His car was parked in front of my door. So I have evidence of this happening. My boyfriend was angry about this, so he went upstairs to confront the neighbors and find out who he was. We reported it to the police with picture evidence since I couldn't send the video because they didn't accept video files on their website. I also pointed out who it was exactly. They called back the next morning to tell us that they couldn't read the license plate number, so this wasn't enough evidence to do anything about it. They offered to call him and ask, but for what? For him to just deny it. So that went nowhere. I also told them that I have actual video footage, but they brushed it off and made it sound like it was just a waste of their time. They didn't care. This is why people don't report packages getting stolen to police. It doesn't help anything, even if you have the evidence. So what did I do? I made a short video on how this guy stole my package, showed the evidence of my package being delivered, the email saying it was delivered at the time stamped on the doorbell cam, and then the guy stealing the package. I posted his face on Facebook at the end of the video, and also posted the video in a couple of groups based on my city with over 11,000 people in them. It got a huge reaction, of course. People were angry that the police were useless in this situation and the fact that this guy is a porch pirate. Then I got a private message from a woman that knew him. She was upset, angry, and shocked. She said that she reached out to him and showed him the post and gave him some tough words. I'm not sure who she was to him, sounded like family. She was sad that he wasn't doing so good again. She made him bring it back right away. So I got my package back within 2 hours of posting that video. I did take it down after I got it and thanked the girl. It's pretty sad that you gotta resort to social media instead of the police to get any help like this quicker too. I had all of the evidence to back it up. When the guy showed up, he looked shook. He really didn't want to be blasted like that, and it sounds like he got in trouble with people around him. The neighbors upstairs probably did too. They had to hear it from my angry boyfriend. He's a big dude. The thief said he felt like a fool and was apologizing and all that, probably going home to get yelled at more. He has children too. It sounds like he is dealing with some stuff in his life, but it still doesn't give him the right to take other people's things. He got lucky with the police. I'm glad I got my package back though. Never thought I would see it again. After I deleted the post, I was thinking maybe blasting him on social media like that and having his family and friends see his face like that would have been worse than the police, because you can always deal with the police behind closed doors and not tell any family and friends who actually care about you, as you would feel like garbage for disappointing them or having to deal with them lecturing you, especially if you're in a position where you hit rock bottom at one point. Get help and support from people around you, and they are watching you get better, and then slipping again right in front of them. That's got to be at least a little heavy. But then again with the police, that petty theft would be on your record, which will cause trouble later down the road. Either way, I got my package back, and I hope he gets some help or something. Anyway, I'm not sure if this would be considered revenge or what, because he was definitely humiliated and I got my package back. I hope you enjoyed reading. Story 6. So, this happened roughly about 2 years ago. I was reminded of it when I logged into my Hinge account and saw that entitled son had messaged me. No, I haven't responded nor intend to. So, we dated for about 4 months 2 years ago. It wasn't the most amazing relationship in the world, but I was happy in it for a time. We dated for a few weeks and things seemed to be going pretty well. Then I was introduced to his Karen mother. At first, she was kind and welcoming to me, always offered me cigarettes and to drop me off to work every now and again. But it wasn't long before the cracks started to show. She treated the entitled son like a slave, and they were pretty close. Not a healthy close, more like a codependent relationship. She needed him to do everything for her. Lift up a box, stir her tea, do the shopping, you name it. She was incapable of doing anything for herself. All she did was smoke and watch TV. Lord knows how she would cope if he were to see through her. He lived with her, and he was 36 or 37 at the time. And when I came into the picture, I'm pretty sure she was threatened by my presence. I could potentially take her baby away from her, talk some sense into him or something. But that would mean that the entitled son had a shiny spine to speak of, which he did not. He wrapped around his mother's finger, despite his protests to the contrary. First of all, She had these insane delusions of grandeur. She would tell me she was a solicitor. However, when I asked her what her specialty was, it would change every time. First, it was employment. Then it was medical malpractice. You name it, she knew everything about the subject. When I gave her quizzical looks on the subject, she tried convincing me that she was a nurse, which again changed like the wind. First she was a midwife, then a mental health nurse, which she would say when I talked about work. I work in a rehab, and say she knew everything about the work I do, then surprised when I was able to prove the contrary. She had these insane views that she knew everything in the world, and if you were to tell her any different, then you were just arguing for the sake of it. I still did, and she hated me for it. She also tried to convince me that she owned her home. Considering that she lived in a major city in one of the most expensive areas in the city, when she didn't work, and hadn't for at least 20 years, turns out it was government housing that she never paid for, and had been in government housing for years and years. In fact, she would put on a very posh accent, tell people that she was a lot better off financially than she actually was. She was living off entitled sons' wages and government help. She'd scream that she needed the help for her back or mysterious pains she had. Yet there were no medical reports to back her claims up. She would scream and shout until she got her way. There were a load of incidents that made me run a mile from them, but here are the few that stick out. One day, midway through work, my phone busted. Now I need my phone for work, so I begged entitled mom and son for help. This was right after work, and I was due in work that night. So she offered. The entire time, she was driving around crying, "It's so early, I need a coffee. But I need a coffee. Oh God, I'm so tired," saying this to me, the woman who had just finished a 13-hour shift. She was driving around for 3 hours, all the while saying she needed a coffee, me close to tears, because I was so tired, and she was refusing to get out of the car to get said coffee. It was for her son to get. Eventually, I got my phone in to be fixed, which was a solid 3 hours longer than it should be because she was screaming for her coffee. Afterwards, when I was in the car with her, nearly crying, she had the guts to ask me what was wrong, and I told her. She did not like that. The most embarrassing. Me and entitled son were getting on his bed cuddling and such. His mother was on the phone to her other son. They were having a blowout argument, and it ended up with her slamming the phone down. She knew I was there, and it only took a bit of common sense to know what we were doing. But she stormed upstairs and the door flew open. She needed to rant after all. She saw the two of us there together, and instantly went red and shut the door. But then a few seconds later said, "No, I need to rant about this," and proceeded to rant and rave for 10 minutes. All the while, I'm scrambling to cover myself up. I was mortified. One day, I was due to go to his place right after a night shift. He woke me up at 4 p.m., and I told him to wait for an hour or two for me to wake up. He called me 20 minutes later because he wanted to see me, and his mother didn't want to wait around for an hour. I was annoyed, and we started arguing over the phone. His mother was trying to get involved in the argument, and I had enough at this point and told the both of them. There are 3 people in this relationship, and I am the least important. Oh, they did not like that in the slightest. That was then she decided that the relationship was not worth it and told him to break it off with me. She told him to break it off. And this man actually entertained the idea. He didn't listen to her, but it was the beginning of the end of the relationship. She would tell him over and over that I was a bad, horrid witch of a woman, she's a terrible influence, and that witch is not welcome in my home. By this time, I just stopped caring. We ended up breaking up maybe a month after this. He did it over text when I refused to apologize to her. He was on my side initially, but then asked me to apologize for the sake of keeping the peace, which I would not do. I don't reward bad behavior. I didn't care at this point. I was happy for him to take himself out of my life. I ended up blocking all contact. And now this message over Hinge. I have zero interest in messaging him back.